Welcome back, everyone. Now, there's an ongoing battle over the statue of a former mayor of Palm Springs. Our Steve Summerall shares that in tonight's Our Desert Pass.
This statue is the representation of the man who used to lead this city. It's meant to honor him. But some matters dealing with race have called former Palm Springs Mayor Frank Bogert's character into question, forcing city leaders to take a deeper look into our desert past. Frank Bogert served 2 terms as the mayor of Palm Springs, from 1958 to 1966, and again from 1982 to 1986. Bogert first came to the valley in 1927, driving cattle from Riverside to the desert for the winter and back for the summer. But he was much more than a politician and much more than a cowboy. He was Palm Springs.
He tries to leave and there's a flood, so he can't get across the wash. So he's kind of forced to stay longer than he anticipated. And upon staying longer than he anticipated, he went back into town and apparently met some people and talked a little bit. Frank's good at jawboning. And made some connections, made some contacts. The next thing you know, Frank is everywhere.
Stories about Bogert, both true and apocryphal, are inextricably tied to the history of Palm Springs, the city he helped to elevate from a sleepy village to a world-class resort. That's why Bogert, known as Palm Springs Cowboy Mayor, has been immortalized on horseback in bronze in front of City Hall.
Some people say Frank Bogert was a pioneer. He may have been a pioneer, but it was only to certain communities. But he was not a pioneer to the residents and the family members of mine that lived on Section 14.
Section 14 is a square-mile parcel of the reservation belonging to the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians that is 1 block from the heart of downtown Palm Springs, extended from Indian Canyon Drive to Sunrise Way and from Ramon Road to Alejo Road. Section 14 was the home of diverse cultures, races, ethnicities, and conflicting political and economic interests.
Palm Springs is a city where poverty and privilege are silent neighbors. On one side of the street, you have the wealthiest of the wealthy. On the other side of the street, you have those that serve them.
The segregation by race and income that Section 14 represented was a political and economic hot potato for years in Palm Springs. But in 1959, a landmark decision by the Secretary of the Interior equalized allotted Indian lands, thereby setting the stage for development of Indian lands within the city limits.
A 99-year lease was allowed. It became legal. So at that point, that sweet property sitting right in the center of downtown Palm Springs, the values soared.
But the city didn't suddenly find a need for integration or even an acknowledgement of civil rights. With land values soaring and Palm Springs booming, something had to be done to clean up what was described as the city's black eye in the heart of downtown. And something was done.
They were forced out. The Attorney General for the state of California said that it was a Holocaust. Not only were they forced out, the ones who did not leave when they were evicted, who stayed because they really didn't have choices or for whatever reason, they, according to some reports, they went to work and came home and a bulldozer had bulldozed down their house and all of their stuff was in ruins.
The removal of these low-income residents while Palm Springs was under Mayor Bogert's leadership became a stain on the city. One of the destroyed properties belonged to the grandfather of Dieter Walker.
We suffered housing discrimination because of city ordinances and policies and practices that basically redlined us to this area that we ultimately fought to get annexed into Palm Springs.
Parts of the neighborhood were burned to the ground. Some families lost generational value, forcing families to start from scratch.
We lost 200 homes. Valued anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000. And $8,000 in 1959 is equivalent to about $75,000 today.
In September of 2021, the Palm Springs City Council voted to begin the legal process to remove the statue of Frank Bogert and issue a formal apology for the city's role in forced evictions.
This is not about Mr. Bogert. This is really about a statue in front of City Hall that brings people pain. And we should likely remove that statue to another location.
It's a decision that has some residents divided.
I cannot think of anyone, and I would defy you to have anybody present anyone that did more to take Palm Springs from being almost a little cattle town and turning it into an international resort. He was a friend, and he deserves to be honored for everything he did for this city.
We heard from residents, from people affected who told stories. There's incredible pain in our community and generational pain because of the impacts of racism and the outcomes that still exist today.
For Our Desert Past, Steve Summerall, NBC Palm Springs, News First.